Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're looking at Polestar. How the Polestar 4 became the brand's carbon emissions champion. The Polestar 4 has the lowest carbon impact at launch of all the brand's cars, 19.4 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And here's why. For automakers who are under intense regulation and social pressure to reduce their carbon output, sustainability is about to become more tailpipe. Sustainability is more than just tailpipe emissions. Most car companies are looking for ways to reduce pollution in every way from manufacturing to material choices and beyond. And now Volvo adjacent electric performance brand Polestar says its new Polestar 4 crossover SUV coupe is a carbon fighting beast. Polestar has been rather transparent so far on the emissions and sustainability front. Now that the first life cycle assessment LCA for the Polestar 4 has been published, it reveals that the EV has the lowest carbon footprint of all the brand's cars to date, as low as 19.4 tons of CO2 carbon dioxide. So what does that actually mean, and how was Polestar able to achieve it? A car's carbon footprint is calculated based on its energy consumption. Keep in mind that the energy source is also important, and CO2 emissions, those include emissions caused by extraction of gas, minerals and other raw ingredients, production of various parts. The assembly of the car, the logistic chains it depends on while it's in use is recycling, and its end of life, basically everything from the moment a vehicle's production begins until it can no longer be used. Now in the case of the Polestar 4, the figures correspond to the vehicle's cradle-to-gate carbon footprint, which starts with the purchase of materials and ends with the car exiting the factory. The assessment includes the actual use by owners and end-to-life stages, so that's worth keeping an eye on. As you can imagine, manufacturing a vehicle with a low carbon footprint is no longer an easy task, and it takes a lot of planning, which is exactly the case with the Polestar 4. To support our net carbon zero goal, we set carbon budget for all cars, said Frederico Caron, head of sustainability of Polestar. Throughout the production of the development of the Polestar 4, its carbon budget has influenced everything from material choices to factor energy sources. So how did Polestar reach a carbon footprint of 19.4 tons for the Polestar 4 at launch? For starters, the electric crossover coupe is built using green power that combines hydropower electricity with photovoltaic electricity from the solar panels placed on the factory roof. The Polestar 4 is built at Geely's Holden SEA factory in Hangzhou Bay, China. The automaker says the climate impact is reduced further thanks to the higher use of low-carbon aluminum from smelters using hydropower electricity. Speaking of aluminum, the Polestar 4 LCA includes data regarding the shares of recycled aluminum for the first time. Aluminum makes up to 23 to 24% of the carbon footprint, while steel and iron represent 20%. Unsurprisingly, the battery modules are the highest contributor to the Polestar's 4 carbon footprint. They account for 36 to 40% of carbon emissions from material productions and refining. The Polestar 4 variant, with the lowest carbon footprint of 19.4 tons of CO2, is the standard range single motor, followed by the long range single motor with a 19.9 ton CO2. The Polestar 4 long range dual motor has the highest carbon footprint of 21.4 tons of CO2. So Polestar has been asked where the difference came from. The production of the Polestar 4 is scheduled to begin in China this month. The automaker plans to launch the electric crossover coupe in the US sometime in 2024. So this is actually incredible to know by Polestar. And thankfully, throughout this week, towards the end of the week, I would say, especially considering Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the Polestar share finally started to see a resurgence in the price. Suddenly, we've noticed that the price starting to have a turnaround. Now, for many, this was quite a surprise. Thankfully, I wasn't as surprised. Thankfully, I bought the dip. And I bought the dip just like I always do. I bought the dip just around $2 flat, thankfully. And the price started going back up towards the end of the week to $2.29. So this is good to see from Polestar. Once again, we found a new bottom for the Polestar share. So this is an impressive stage for Polestar because since the IPO, they've fallen by 77%. That's a huge drop off in share price. And there's been some moments when we've considered how could it possibly go any lower than this, and to our surprise, it has. I've been buying Polestar share for quite some time now, and the thing I keep in mind is that I buy more share the cheaper it gets. At the start, I was just buying 1, 2, 3 share. I still don't own a lot of share, to be honest. Now I own around 40%. Now I own around 40 shares, but I'm happy with that because I've avoided wasting a lot of money by buying when it's more expensive. And that's what a lot of people have done. A lot of people have invested heavily, thousands of dollars, but they bought when the price was just too expensive. In my opinion, in my humblest opinion, you could have waited longer. But hey, that's not financial advice. I've seen people just throwing money at this share. And while I understand the enthusiasm, I never understood the logic behind the share. This share hasn't had a chance to prove itself. It needs time to prove itself. It takes time for a company to prove itself. So to throw that much money at a company and not knowing, not seeing it prove itself is an unpredictable. It's a little bit greedy from a lot of investors. Let's be honest. It's a little bit greedy. But it's also the fact that they don't know what they're doing. A lot of investors I've seen on Twitter complaining, on YouTube complaining that the Polestar share is going down. Well, what do you expect? It's one of the smaller EV companies. Of course, it's going to be impacted by a large percentage. Take a look at Rivian. Rivian all time is down by a huge amount. Let's not forget. If I take a look at the Rivian overview, over all time, Rivian is down 83%. So it's actually down more than Polestar. And I'm buying Rivian shares as well. I really like the Rivian company, but I waited until the shares were as cheap as possible. I remember a time when I was buying Rivian shares around $12.82, less than $13. I knew $10 was my ideal place to buy Rivian shares. And thankfully, I've seen Rivian recovered quite well to around $27. That's impressive once again. And once again, it's been dipping. Every time it dips, I buy. I love to buy the dip. But that's just me. It's not for everyone. But it's not just Polestar who's having a difficult time. There's good companies out there just like Rivian that are having a difficult time. Polestar is also having a difficult time. It's what to expect. It's exactly what we can expect. You didn't actually think that these companies would do what Tesla did just overnight. And even Tesla struggled for years. I remember times when the share price was so low, people kept on saying in the media, this company is guaranteed to fail. Remember, there's a few years constantly in the media when all that people were saying was singing, Tesla will fail. When will Tesla fail? How will Tesla fail? So a lot of people put too much expectation on Rivian and Polestar too quickly, in my opinion. These companies are good, but they're not that good, and it takes time. But that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. That was my quick rant. Subscribe to see more, leave a like, leave a comment, and I'll see you in our next video. Peace. Not financial advice, by the way. Just my opinion.